welcome to day one of Bookmas. I started making videos pretty much a year ago. It's kind of like a celebration of that slash the holiday season. I kind of wanted to do my own version of Bookmas. I'm going to do the 3 days of Bookmas, so you're going to get a video today, tomorrow, and then the next day. This is kind of a challenge for me because I don't usually film so many videos so close together. So I want to have fun with it and kind of try it out. I really enjoy this kind of content from other people, so I wanted to do it. Here you are for day one. I am going to give you my 2025 TBR. Last year, and I think it was the first video I ever made, was 24 books for 2024. I did not manage to read all 24 of them, just from being interested in other books and not having crazy amounts of time, that kind of thing. Those are the only reasons really. And because of that, I am lowering my expectations for myself. So for 2025, I'm actually assigning 20 books as if I'm a teacher. I am aiming to read 20 books off my physical TBR. First, I have 6 books that are not yet released, but I am super excited for them and they have to go on this list. Let's get into it. The first book I want to read next year is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. So this is the 3rd book in the Empyrean series, the Fourth Wing series, and I actually read Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, both of them this year. So it's going to be kind of exciting to read the 3rd and potentially final. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong, but what I assume could be the final of the Fourth Wing series as it comes out and as the hype is at its peak, I suppose. So that actually comes out in January 2025. So that could be like the first book I read in 2025. I'll give you like an idea of the synopsis without giving spoilers. So just bear with me. The storm is coming. Get ready to fly or die in the breathtaking follow-up to Fourth Wing and Iron Flame from #1 best-selling author blah blah blah. Violet knows there's no time for lessons, no more time for uncertainty, because the battle has truly begun, and with enemies closing in from everywhere, it's impossible to know who to trust. Now Violet must journey to seek allies from unfamiliar lands to stand with Navarre. The trip will test every bit of her wit, luck and strength, but she will do anything to save what she loves: her dragons, her family, her home, and him. You get the gist. That was kind of a nothing burger, but it does sound like there's going to be a bit of journeying going on. Full disclosure, I'm not a huge quest-oriented book fan, but we'll see. I'm like quite excited for Onyx Storm, and I think it'll go nicely on my bookshelf. Next, in February, we have an Ali Hazelwood book coming out. I love Ali Hazelwood. This one is called Deep End, and I believe it's a swimmer romance. A competitive diver and an ace swimmer jump into forbidden waters in this steamy college romance from Ali Hazelwood. Scarlett Vandermeer is swimming upstream, a junior at Stanford and a student athlete who specializes in platform diving. Scarlett prefers to keep her head down, concentrating on getting into med school and on recovering from the injury that almost ended her career. She has no time for relationships, at least that's what she tells herself. Swim captain, world champion, all-around aquatics golden boy Lucas thrives on discipline. It's how he wins gold medals and breaks records. Complete focus with every stroke. On the surface, Lucas and Scarlett have nothing in common until a well-guarded secret slips out and everything changes. Blah blah blah. February also happens to be my birth month, so I'm not saying Ali Hazelwood wrote it for me, but like I'm totally saying it. Yeah, clearly she knows. That is the perfect birthday present from Miss Hazelwood, and I'm very happy about that. I also love swimming, so you know. Next we have in March, we have a few coming out in March. Like March is going to be a great reading month for me. First we have The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. So Cassandra Clare is like my all-time favorite author. It's so hard to explain how much I love her books. I have flown to different countries for book signings for her. I have been obsessed with every single one of her books since I found her when I was 14. The perfect age to find Cassandra Clare. So It was really like right age, right book kind of situation with me and Cassandra Clare. And you know, I love all of her books. So I have special editions, I have signed copies coming out my ears. So I love her. And I'm also really excited to finally get to review one of her books on this channel, because she hasn't released one since I started making videos. A Travesty and a Crying Shame. The Ragpicker King is the second book in the Swordcatcher series. This was her like debut adult fantasy rather than YA. And I definitely think there were good and bad things about it. Like, it felt so good to be reading a Santa Clare book. It felt so good for it to be an adult book. But then there were certain things that I felt were a bit lacking. And I thought the allegories in there were too overt and too in your face. So I'm hoping that is improved upon now going into the Ragpicker King. I have high hopes for the second book in the Swordcatcher series, because there's one thing I can trust Cassandra Clare to do is absolutely hit it out of the park with that second book. And a lot of times I do prefer the second book to the third book. I feel like she finds her place, because in the second it's no longer a new series, but there's also not the pressure of finishing the series. So she has a little breathing room to destroy you. So be warned, that's going to happen in March, potentially ruining my life. Next, also in March coming out, is Sunrise on the Reaping by Susanna Collins. Suzanne Collins, I always say Susanna, it's Suzanne. Anyone who doesn't know, Suzanne Collins, the queen herself, the author of The Hunger Games. So obviously The Hunger Games is massive book, like a foundational part of most people's reading journey, like around my age. I'd reckon I read The Hunger Games right before I saw the first movie, I think 2011 then, because I saw it in the cinemas. And again, it was another instance of right age, right book. Now we're getting Sunrise on the Reaping, which is Haymitch's story. So obviously if you've not read The Hunger Games, that will mean nothing to you. Quick little synopsis. When you've been set up to lose everything you love, what is there left to fight for? As the day dawns on the 50th annual Hunger Games, fear grips the districts of Panem. This year, in honor of the Quarter Quell, twice as many tributes will be taken from their homes. Back in District 12, Haymitch Abernathy is trying not to think too hard about his chances. All he cares about is making it through the day and being with the girl he loves. When Haymitch's name is called, he can feel all his dreams break. He's torn from his family and his love, shuttled to the capital with 3 other District 12, a young friend who's nearly a sister to him, a compulsive odds maker, and the most stuck-up girl in town. As the games begin, Haymitch understands he's been set up to fail, but there's something in him that wants to fight and have that fight reverberate far beyond the deadly arena. 5 stars. I'll tell you right now, my rating's 5 stars. I'm so excited. And also Haymitch is one of the characters I'd say that deserves and like warrants a backstory, especially his games, because in The Hunger Games, Haymitch is one of the characters who is so obviously haunted by the Hunger Games. Now we get to see where that comes from and like what exactly messed him up that bad. The next one coming out in March is Oathbound by Tracy Deonne. This is the 3rd book in the Legendborn series. So okay, some of you, again, who've been here a while will say, hey, you didn't actually finish Bloodmarked yet. It's on the list too, just wait. Legendborn is another one of these books that blew up way before I read it. So I kind of missed the initial hype on the internet. I wasn't involved in the circle at all because obviously I hadn't read it, and I avoid spoilers like the plague. So I didn't really see much hype until after I read it, because I actively sought that out. And when I read the first one, the second one was already released. I bought the second one, I started reading it, but when I started reading it, I had just read, I'd say about 4 fantasy books in a row, and it wasn't happening. So I had to put it down. I genuinely think Bloodmarked is one of the first books I want to read next year, because I gotta read Oathbound as it comes out. Like, I can't miss that. And so the final book I'm looking forward to that is coming out next year is Great Big Beautiful Life by none other than Emily Henry. So I don't even know what this one's about. I just heard she was releasing another book and I said, yeah, okay, I'm reading it. Two writers compete for the chance to tell the larger-than-life story of a woman with more than a couple of plot twists up her sleeve in this dazzling and sweeping new novel from Emily Henry. Alice Scott is an eternal optimist, still dreaming of her big break. Hayden Anderson is a Pulitzer Prize winning Hewitt Thundercloud, and they're both on balmy little Crescent Island for the same reason, to write the biography of a woman no one has seen in years, or at least to meet with the octogenarian who claims to be the Margaret Ives. And like there's quite a long description here. But yeah, so they're competing to write her story. I heard somewhere that it's based on something specific or like a celebrity specifically, but I actually can't think of who it is. If that sounds interesting or like that adds to it for you, maybe Google it. I don't know. But it's an Emily Henry book. Emily Henry books like are an instant read. Like you have to. I think one of the last books I just read was Funny Story and it was incredible and I loved it. Right, so those are all of the books I don't currently own that are on my TBR for 2025. I'm gonna try speed this up. I love to chat and give you the 14 books that I do own that I gotta read. A few of these books are on my like read it or give it away list. I have them written down here in the order I thought of them. That just goes to show you how like close to my mind certain books were. And number one is Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. Oh my God. My copy of Siege and Storm has been on my TBR card for 3 years. Well, I didn't have a TBR card 3 years ago, but it's been on my shelf in one version or another 3 years. Siege and Storm has been with me through 2 moves, 3 apartments. That's too many. If I don't read this in 2025, she's gone. We are going to struggle through Siege and Storm and start Six of Crows because I'm dying here. I'm so behind on that series. And my brother read it in one day, like literally sat down on the couch one day and then handed it to me at nighttime. I was like, it was okay. So it's clearly quick. The next book I want to read is Bloodmarked. So another high priority one. As I said, I want to read Oathbound when it comes out, which means I have 3 months to get it into me. That should be no problem. Tracy Deonne, fantastic writer. Loved her last year. Next, we have The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black. This is the second book in a duology. The first one I have it here is The Stolen Heir, and then The Prisoner's Throne. I have the matching copy, like the hardback signed beautifulness up on my shelf. I do want to read it just to complete the series. I really enjoy Holly Black. She's the author of The Cruel Prince, and this duology is a spin-off of the Cruel Prince series. I really love The Cruel Prince, and I love Holly Black's writing. There is not much more to say about that. Just think I should finish that duology, especially with it sitting staring at me. Next, we have Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This is the second book in the Powerless series. I'm sure you've heard of it. Reckless is another one that's right up my alley. Powerless, loved it. It was, I think, my first 5-star this year. So we might end up starting next year, maybe with Reckless, 2 years in a row. I think Fearless could be the third one. It's coming out very soon, potentially in 2025. I'm not sure though. I'm actually kind of surprised I didn't read it. I don't know what happened either. I think in the second half of the year I got really into just pure romance. No reason specifically. I just liked it. I was in the mood for romance, I guess. Next, I would like to read Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Gerber. This year I actually read the full I say as if it's 500 books, it's 3 books, the Caraval trilogy. And I really loved it. I really loved the universe. I loved Stephanie Gerber's, not necessarily her writing, but the essence of her writing. There was such a fairy tale enchantment feeling when you read her books. So Once Upon a Broken Heart is actually the reason I read the Caraval series, because much like the Shadow and Bone, Six of Crows situation, I wanted to read the backup books before getting to the one that I saw loads of hype on, except I really enjoyed Caraval in the end. It's fantastic. I'm so happy, delighted actually, that I did. I finally get to move on to Once Upon a Broken Heart and return to the world, but different characters. Next, I would like to read The Priory of the Orange Tree. I actually got that for Christmas last year, so it's not one of the worst sitting on my shelf. Not in a sense of time, but in a sense of, what do you mean you've not read that? And yeah, what do I mean? I haven't read that yet. This is definitely fantasy. It's also a very thick book, so maybe that's kind of subconsciously I'm like, ooh, I don't know. Can just be a commitment and a half to read. Next, we have A Deadly Education. A Deadly Education sounds exactly like what I love in a book. I love the setting of like a magic school without the characters being children. That's where I really loved the Atlas 6, and what I really liked about it was that nostalgic magic school vibe. I think A Deadly Education should be the same thing. And then I read in some reviews they were like, A Deadly Education is a good version of the Atlas 6, and then I read in some that it was the other way around. I'll keep you updated on how good or bad it is. Next we have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So of course Taylor Jenkins Reid is the author of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six. I've read both of those books, and so I always like to keep kind of a Taylor Jenkins Reid for a rainy day on my shelf to see if I want to, kind of like a historical fiction if I'm in that mood, but a historical fiction that low-key gaslights you into thinking that it's true, because she is so good at writing books that just make you think that it's what happened. Or that these people are real people. Don't get fooled, they're not, but they feel like they are. Malibu Rising has just been one I've had for a really long time. This is another one that's been there a really long time. We should get to that. We should definitely get to that. Next, we have Daisy Hates. Daisy Hates is kind of like the partner series to Magnolia Parks. You're supposed to read them, Magnolia Parks 1, Daisy Hates 1, Magnolia Parks 2, Daisy Hates 2, etc, etc. And I actually own the first Daisy Hates book and then all 3 of the Magnolia Parks books, because I went to a book signing. When the opportunity to have your book signed by Jessa Hastings arises, you just buy all the books and get her to sign all of them. So I gotta start making a dent in them. I read Magnolia Parks earlier in the year, so I really actually just have to dive into Daisy Hates. Next, I want to read Take a Hint, Dani Brown. This is the second book in a kind of interconnected standalone series about the Brown sisters. I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown earlier in the year and absolutely adored it. I thought it was such a nice romance, quite fun characters. There's not much to say except I love a romance book and I already know I like the characters. Next, we have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabriella Zevin. So this is one of your contemporary romance question marks. I've heard some people refer to it as a romance, but a lot of people don't. I think it's technically in the literary fiction section, so unsure. I believe it's about 2 people who develop an app together, and it's like about their relationship over the course of the years while also developing this app. That's really all I know. I haven't read it yet. My boyfriend read it and he enjoyed it. People online really enjoy the book too, and I think it has quite a high Goodreads rating. Next is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I got A Darker Shade of Magic last Christmas, so again, it's not one of the bad ones that have been sitting on the shelf. The main reason it's on the shelf is because I want to test out V.E. Schwab's writing. I really want to read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I've seen people read it obviously the last years, but recently I saw someone else read it who I tend to have quite a similar book style to, or like at least opinions, and she really loved it. Like it was like a 17 star for her, and that really intrigued me, and I'm like, will I like it? But A Darker Shade of Magic, first of all, a friend recommended it, but he also said that he doesn't think I will like V.E. Schwab's writing because of just the type of writing that Schwab writes like. I don't know, obviously I've not read it. I couldn't tell you if it's right or wrong. It just sounds kind of silly. Instead of reading Addie LaRue, I want to test her writing with A Darker Shade of Magic. It's another one I've heard so many good things about, and obviously the friend really loved it, and I think he has pretty good book taste, so I suppose we'll see. Next, I would like to read Electra by Jennifer Saint. This is a Greek retelling, which I really enjoy. I love Greek mythology. I'm so interested in it. Thank you, Percy Jackson, for starting that. I tend to just pick up Greek retellings if I see them, especially if I don't know the myth very well. I don't know the story of Electra. With Jennifer Saint, I'm a bit iffy with. So I've read one of hers. It was the Ariadne one, which was supposed to be a feminist retelling of, you know, Theseus the Minotaur and Ariadne. You hear that and you think, wow, Katie, it sounds exactly like it's for you. I think it was mismarketed. It was just the myth from Ariadne's point of view. There's no like added feminism to it. It just, yeah, it's whatever. I won't dive too deep into that. I'm hoping with Electra it'll be a bit different. Yeah, we'll see. Finally, the last book on my 2025 TBR is Consider Me by Becca Mack. Consider Me is a hockey romance, and I bought this a while back when I wasn't sick of hockey romance. So at this stage, I don't really want to read more hockey romance. I don't want any more of this. I've read the L. Kennedy series, you know, the off-campus series. I'm reading Icebreaker series, or is it Maple Hills? And I've definitely read one or two other hockey-ish romances. Yeah. Can we stop with hockey? Maybe, you know, give another sport a go. So the main reason I want to read Consider Me is to get it off my shelf. And obviously if I don't like it that much, I will just give it away. With it just sitting there on my shelf, I don't know if I won't like it. So I gotta read it. I gotta do it. So that's the only reason it's on it, and I haven't even read the back since I bought it. That is my 2025 TBR. Thank you for watching day 1 of Bookmas. So you have 2 more days. I will hopefully get them up tomorrow and the next day. If you enjoyed this video, here's another one that YouTube thinks you may like. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.